Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome both in the sanctuary and online to the Sunday service of the St. Petersburg Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg. A little bit tired this morning. We're currently, my name is John Motter. I'm a member of this church and also on the worship committee. We're currently on the unceded ancestral lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole Native Americans. With Reverend Ben being out of the country, the racial justice team asked if we could provide today's service honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. This is also a Share the Plate Day when one half of the non-pledged loose offering will go to a special fund or cause, and the recipient of today's Share the Plate is Blue, which is Black Lives of Unitarian Universalists. I'm happy to be joined today by Todd Wellman on the piano, John Arterton, James Mack, and the UU St. Pete Choir for today's music, and then the members of the racial justice team will be rotating in and out of the service. Our team is made up of Christine Barker, Karen Cole, Ariana Drew, myself, Cynthia Patterson, Kelly Patton, and Amy Sowers. And I'll now pass it over to my fellow co-chair, Christine Barker.
Thanks, John. And good morning, everyone. And how great to see everybody here on this cold and rainy day. So it's really wonderful to be here. Thank you. If you want a church where Black Lives Matter, where books are not banned, where women are regarded as fully human, and where we strive to treat people fairly and kindly, where each person is free to search for what is true and right in our life, I have good news for you. You may have found your church home.
Thanks, Christine. Today is a continuation of our month's theme of liberating love. More importantly, we are recognizing the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. King spoke extensively on the theme of love and nonviolence, and while accepting the Nobel Peace Prize, he said, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why, temporarily defeated, love is stronger than evil triumphant."
It's the second Sunday of the month, which means Equal Exchange, Fair Trade coffee, tea, and chocolate will be available in Gilmore after the service. These products are ethically sourced, organic, and tasty. Look for Karen Craig and Karen Frank, sorry guys. I know it's happened before, right? Karen Frank and Reggie Craig at the Social Justice Team in Gilmore. There's a lot going on this week, so please read the announcements and inserts in the order of service. Pay particular attention to the information for participating in tomorrow's parade and the request for volunteers to make Ted Lasso's special biscuits for next week. Karen Cole will be next door with the MLK sign-up sheets. I will too. And Susan Bernor, want to give Susan a wave, can give you more information on the biscuit making.
Thanks, Christine. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of diverse beliefs, but we share a common faith, a faith that every person is worthy of love, that what we do in this world matters, that we are connected to one another and to the earth. So whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here.
Allow me to give a special welcome to any newcomers. If you are new to sorry, I know John and I are stumbling over that. If you are new to UUSP or even relatively new, can you give a wave so that we can welcome you? Wow, welcome everybody. Often we give people a chance to introduce themselves if they wish. However, because we have such a full service, I'm going to ask that church members make an extra effort to welcome our visitors today. We appreciate you choosing to spend time with us this morning. And come back next week and you'll have a chance to introduce yourselves.
Thank you for silencing your cell phones. And regarding masks, we encourage you to wear one as you feel comfortable. Masks are available at either entrance. We'll take a few minutes to greet our neighbors. Remember to get consent if you're going to hug or shake hands.
The flaming chalice is a reminder that we choose to focus here together for this time today, and that we believe such time is sacred. As Joanne Kilner lights our chalice, I invite you to say our covenant out loud. The words can be found in your order of service and online in the text chat.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
In thinking about what we need to do in order to keep the dream moving forward, I'd like to read a piece by Christian Smith entitled, Wake Up. Let us wake up, not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion, from the wish for a few more drowsy minutes in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and wonder, and also its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality that not all in our world have what we do, however much or little that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those we are inextricably tied to in a great web of mutuality, of which all of us are a part. We must #stay woke, in the words of our friends and colleagues involved in the Black Lives Matter movement, working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up, let us stay awake, let us stay woke, and now in this time and place, let us worship together.
Please rise as you're willing and able for our first hymn, Come and Go With Me. It's number 1018 in the Teal hymnal.
Very glad to have Todd Wellman with us playing piano. Boom, boom. Let us do 3 verses. Come and go with me to that land, and there'll be freedom in that land, and there'll be justice in that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm freedom. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. Justice. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Motter Bentley, as most of you know. I first learned about the meaning of making a pledge when I was very young in Mrs. Spade's Methodist primary Sunday school class. We weren't old enough to earn allowances, but we put our nickels or dimes in the basket she passed around. Curious, one of the kids asked her where the money went. She explained that it was used for many things: keeping the church clean, paying the pastor and staff, buying books, helping people who don't have all the things that we have, as well as other expenses that they could understand at their age. She also taught us about the meaning of the word pledge and compared it to the Pledge of Allegiance or our Girl or Boy Scout pledge, even though that, excuse me, didn't involve money. I lost my voice.
Which is a good time for me to start talking. When Mom, Bill, and I moved here 6.5 years ago, it was Bill's job to help find a church for Mom. UUSP was the second church they tried, and Mom liked it. And surprisingly, so did Bill. They both kept coming back, and eventually I followed, and I'm so glad that I did. UUSP is central to our lives. You have embraced us and cared for us. During my first year, I fractured my back and then had a 5-month-long battle against an infection that nearly took my left leg. People I barely knew sent cards, and they visited me. When Mom shattered her femur, you visited her during rehab. When she came home, you delivered nightly meals. You followed through again when she broke her pelvis. When one of you asks, "Call if you need anything," you're not just being polite. You expect a phone call. You expect to be able to come and do something to help out a fellow congregation member. And that sense of belonging and support is absolutely priceless.
I am so grateful to be a loyal pledging member. It's such a caring church community. I emphasize the words caring and community. From the first day I visited UUSP to the present time, I have known that this community is where my sons and I belong.
This is a vibrant community, and we feel fulfilled to be pledging and active parts of it.
We are pleased that we can call on Pastor Ben for both spiritual and personal advice. We can also count on our other dear UU friends.
Thank you. In a few minutes, Ariana will be reading a poem entitled White Boy Privilege, which was written by a 14-year-old boy. If it were a film, then it would be given an R rating due to the use of profanity more than one time. However, the language is used to make important points within the poem, and therefore we felt it was crucial to read it as written. However, because of the language, we will sing the children and the youth out prior to this reading. For anyone who would like to share this poem with your youth or young adult, we have printed copies available. We encourage you to consider sharing the poem with them and then discussing your reactions. We live in a state that has banned books, prohibited educational topics that are believed to make people feel guilty about themselves and their history. We've enacted anti-trans legislation and so much more. Young people are living the poem, whether it's R-rated or not. We'll now sing the children and youth out to their classes. Todd has chosen an excerpt from My Heart Will Go On. The words can be found in the order of service or the text chat.
White Boy Privilege is a poem written by 14-year-old Royce Mann. It was written for a slam poetry competition at his school in Atlanta, and a video of the poem ended up going viral. Although there were a lot of accolades, there was also some backlash. He said that he has faith that the ladder of equality will one day become a bridge. When interviewed, he said, "It will be a long time, but I think within my lifetime, we'll see a lot of progress." Here's White Boy Privilege. Dear women, I'm sorry. Dear Black people, I'm sorry. Dear Asian Americans, dear Native Americans, dear immigrants who come here seeking a better life, I am sorry. Dear everyone who isn't middle or upper class white boy, I'm sorry. I have started life on the top of the ladder while you were born on the first rung. I say now that I would change places with you in an instant, but if given the opportunity, would I? Probably not. Because to be honest, being privileged is awesome. I'm not saying that you and me on different rungs of the ladder is how I want it to stay. I'm not saying that any part of me has for a moment even liked it that way. I'm just saying that I fucking love being privileged, and I'm not ready to give that away. I love it because I can say fuck, and not one of you is attributing that to the fact that everyone with my skin color has a dirty mouth. I love it because I don't have to spend an hour every morning putting on makeup to meet other people's standards. I love it because I can worry about what kind of food is on my plate instead of whether or not there will be food on my plate. I love it because when I see a police officer, I see someone who's on my side. To be honest, I'm scared of what it would be like if I wasn't on the top rung, if the tables were turned and I didn't have my white boy privilege safety blankie to protect me. If I lived a life lit by what I lack, not what I have. If I lived a life in which when I failed, the world would say, "Told you so." If I lived a life that you live. When I was born, I had a success story already written for me. You were given a pen and no paper. I've always felt that that's unfair, but I've never dared to speak up because I've been too scared. Well, now I realize that there's enough blankie to be shared. Everyone should have the privileges I have. In fact, they should be rights instead. Everyone's story should be written so that all they have to do is get it read. Enough said. No, not enough said. It's embarrassing that we still live in a world in which we judge another person's character by the size of their paycheck, the color of their skin, or the type of chromosomes they have. It's embarrassing that we tell our kids that it is not their personality, but instead the same chromosomes that get to dictate what color clothes they wear and how short they must cut their hair. But most of all, it's embarrassing that we deny this, that we claim to live in an equal country and an equal world. We see that women can vote. Well, guess what? They can run a country, own a company, and throw a nasty curveball as well. We just don't give them the chance to. I know it wasn't us 8th grade white boys who created this system, but we profit from it every day. We don't notice these privileges, though, because we don't come in the form of things we gain, but rather the lack of injustices that we endure. Because of my gender, I can watch any sport on TV and feel like that could be me one day. Because of my race, I can eat at a fancy restaurant without the waitstaff expecting me to steal the silverware. Thanks to my parents' salary, I go to a school that brings my dreams closer instead of pushing them away. Dear white boys, I'm not sorry. I don't care if you think the feminists are taking over the world, that the Black Lives Matter movement has gotten a little too strong, because that's bullshit. I get that change can be scary, but equality shouldn't be. Hey, white boys, it's time to act like a woman, to be strong and make a difference. It's time to let go of that fear. It's time to take that ladder and turn it into a bridge.
We've now come to the time in our worship service for joys, sorrows, and concerns. Those of you on YouTube Live are not in the room, but your presence is still felt. Please type your joys and sorrows into the text chat. If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern to submit during the week, please write to Reverend Ben at minister@uustpete.org. And now we have James. Would you, because we didn't prepare for this, would you mind placing a stone in? So James will place a stone in the water for each one that was submitted this week. The ripples emanating from the stones remind us of the impact our lives have as they ripple throughout our community.
A stone of sorrow with a dash of joy from John Motter. My dear friend Jerry Johnson is coming to the end of her battle with numerous bouts of cancer. The dash of joy is because she lives in Oregon, a state that gives her control over her body. She will soon be deciding that it is time to access her death with dignity option. Please send some positive energy out in the world on her behalf. The world will be losing a lifelong activist and ally to all people that are marginalized.
A stone of sorrow. Former UUSP member Don McNary passed away on January 9th. Both Don and wife Julie were members of the UUSP choir. There will be a celebration of life February 12th at 2 p.m. at the Quaker Center of Westminster Suncoast. Are there any other that got passed forward? Oh, the choir. Here, I thought you had abbreviated Quaker to Quack, but so the Quack Center at Westminster Suncoast. So may we bring to mind and hold close to our hearts Jerry Johnson, friends and family of Don McNary and his wife Julie, all those known and unknown who are facing challenges and health concerns. Now please join us for our responsive reading written by, I cut and paste this, our responsive reading written by somebody named John Motter.
May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidences of oppression and hatred that so many face each day.
Rather may we keep our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world. May we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives matter.
The struggle is taking longer than it should, but we will get there
if we continue to strive for basic human rights.
May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community.
And we will place a final stone for those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender to be spoken out loud. Let's take about a minute of silence together. The mystery is that we are connected, even when we feel apart. Let us rejoice in our beloved community that makes of the many one. So may it be.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the land, giving life the shape of justice. Root hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
The idea of communities and individuals pledging to end racism was developed in Birmingham, Alabama in 1997. In 2014, the First Unitarian Church of Richmond, Virginia, after being impacted by the heartbreaking killings of unarmed Black children and young men, chose to adopt the Birmingham Pledge and developed a 12-hour workshop to help people live the pledge. And that church continues to update the workshop, offer it at their own church, and make it readily available to others. Our racial justice team was excited and proud, and a little nervous, to offer the Living the Pledge training for the first time here at UUSP last fall. 23 members of our congregation enthusiastically joined us, meeting on 6 consecutive Sunday afternoons. We worked in large and small groups, sharing our own backgrounds and developing a community of support. We studied how to recognize and challenge systemic racism and learned and practiced how to confront racism in everyday encounters. And finally, we made a personal commitment to end racism. Our average attendance for each workshop was 19, so you can see how engaged everyone was as they continued to attend these 2-hour sessions, even after long Sunday mornings at church. Yeah. Today, we want to honor the enthusiasm, persistence, tenacity, openness, and energy of those 23 individuals who made the first UUSP Living the Pledge workshop so successful. If you're here in person, please stand. And if you're on Zoom, please give a wave. And Karen is going to read the pledge that we're talking so much about.
Christine said, "Here is the pledge. I believe that every person has worth as an individual. I believe that every person is entitled to dignity and respect, regardless of race or color. I believe that every thought and every act of racial prejudice is harmful. If it is my thought or act, then it's also harmful to me as well. Therefore, from this day forward, I will strive daily to eliminate racial prejudice from my thoughts and actions. I will discourage racial prejudice by others at every opportunity. I will treat all people with dignity and respect. I will commit to working with others to transform this community into a place that treats all people of all races, ethnicities, and cultures with justice, equity, and compassion. And I will strive daily to honor this pledge, knowing that the world will be a better place because of my effort. So again, thank you to the inaugural graduates of the first UUSP Pledged Workshop. We'll be offering another workshop in February. Please see the insert in your bulletin today, and you can stop by the social justice table afterwards to sign up. Thank you.
Normally, we would do the mission moment, and just to let people know, we put in the order of service today just a piece of the proposed Article 2 excerpt on liberating love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. And you'll be hearing more about the Article 2 changes or proposed changes in the next few months. And now it's time for our anthem and the UUSP choir singing Like a Mighty Stream.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools." We are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. And whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. Now, as we ponder Dr. King's words, we're going to do a responsive reading by Reverend Dr. Megan Foley and Reverend Teresa Soto. When I gesture to the audience, you can all say the words with me. All of us need all of us to make it. Unitarian Universalist minister Reverend Teresa Soto writes, "All of us need all of us to make it." I want you to get used to those words. Make them your prayer. All of us need all of us to make it. This is why Unitarian Universalists support the Black Lives Matter movement. Please take a moment to center the struggle for Black lives in your thoughts. Say it with me, loud or soft. All of us need all of us to make it. In a world where some of us are targeted for struggle and brutality, where others of us benefit and flourish, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. In a world where powerful people of ill will and indifference make us fearful for our safety and our futures, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. In the excruciating space that lives between seeing and naming, and hearing and changing, we pray. All of us need all of us to make it. Make a picture in your mind of someone you aren't very happy with right now. Look at their face in your mind and pray. All of us need all of us to make it. Unitarian Universalists believe that all of us need all of us to make it. This is why we are in solidarity with the movement for Black lives today and every day.
Thank you, Kelly. How do we keep the dream alive and moving forward? I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. That seems like such a simple statement, and in some respects it is. And yet, is that something that we do in practice? As Royce Mann said, everyone's story should be written, so all they have to do is get it read. Over 60 years ago, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke these words, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And yet, where are we today? We certainly aren't at the dream, but how far away from it are we? And how are we going to get there? And what can I do? What can you do?" It was hard to absorb the recent news of my friend Jerry Johnson. I first met her when I started volunteering at Cascade AIDS Project in Portland. Here was this almost 70-year-old woman, she was a widow, volunteering 10 to 20 hours a week for an HIV/AIDS organization. She didn't have a child who identified as LGBTQ+. She didn't know anyone that was HIV positive prior to volunteering there. So what was her story? It didn't take long to figure out that she was just very passionate about social justice issues and human rights. Her parents were professors, and so education was important to her. After college, she married a military officer and had a son. She soon realized that playing the role of an officer's wife was not her style. And trust me, she talked about having to wear white gloves, and you would not picture her in white gloves. It was not her place. Eugene, Oregon was a college town, and civil rights was coming to a head. Jerry would attend NAACP meetings and such. Enough so that she found out years later that she'd been placed on a subversive list by the FBI. She remarried and managed several Job Corps sites while her husband ran an oil distribution company in Central Oregon. When her husband died unexpectedly, she was stuck with a company that needed to be run in an industry that she knew little about. Central Oregon is not known for its liberal values. Jerry would schedule meetings for G.J. Johnson. Clients were always surprised when she showed up, and rather as a woman rather than some good old boy. She ran that company for 7 years, growing it steadily before selling it for a substantial profit. Why do I tell you all this during a service for Martin Luther King Jr.? I tell you this because I admire her for a number of things. She has strong values, and she feels everyone deserves to be treated equally. She's always stayed true to those values, and she spent her retirement supporting causes and people that align with those values. Jerry volunteered with me in Kenya. She supported the right for bodily autonomy, LGBTQIA+ rights, racial equity, and so much more. She was so concerned about the politics in Florida in this last election that she phone banked and donated heavily for our Florida state Democratic candidates. Her son predeceased her, and so when she dies, her estate will continue to promote social change. She would have made a good UU because her values were certainly aligned with ours, or are certainly aligned with ours. But she is very much against organized religion and felt that it was hypocritical by nature. She was much more into taking direct action, and when she saw a wrong occurring, she went for it to attack it and correct it. And that leads me to what can we do as a church and as individuals. In a 1966 sermon entitled Guideline for Constructive Church, King said, "If the church is following its guidelines, it seeks to heal the brokenhearted." Now, there's probably no human condition more tantalizing than a broken heart. You see, brokenheartedness is not a physical condition. It's a condition of spiritual exhaustion. And who here this morning has not experienced a broken heart? I would say brokenheartedness comes basically from the trying experience of disappointment. So what does this mean to me? How many times have we as a church, a community, or a nation caused disappointment within the Black community? We have minimized the concerns of a BIPOC person when they've mentioned a racial comment or incident. "Oh, don't let that bother you. He's like that with everyone." Or, "They were just joking around." There's a history to the green bench that's in our courtyard behind me. The Tropicana's parking lot sits on top of the remains of someone's loved ones. 40 acres and a mule never came to be, and the GI Bill only paid for some people's college tuition. FHA home loans weren't available if your home was on the wrong side of this certain red line. So should we as a church seek to heal the brokenhearted, or at least stop it from breaking further? Our first principle says we affirm the wealth and dignity of every person. I feel we have a moral obligation as a church to advance the dream. Occasionally, I hear comments that there's too much focus on social justice and not enough on spirituality. I agree with those comments. I would love to not talk about social justice issues, because the day I don't have to talk about them is the day that there is no longer any social injustices. For me, personally, I feel that social justice work is doing spiritual work. So is our church doing enough? Too much? Too little? I can't answer that, but you know I have an opinion. If you look at all that is happening within our church, you'll see a wide range of opportunities to nourish your spirituality, to feed your activism, and to share time with like-minded people. Nourish your spirituality through participating in a covenant group or the Tuesday meditation group. Feed your activism through attending the Living the Pledge to End Racism workshop or become active in FAST. And if you're seeking time with just like-minded individuals that has to do with nothing but enjoying each other's companies, then go to the fellowship on tap that we have each month. Or you can walk with the women's group on Mondays, or you can meet up with a biking group on Wednesdays. The point is that the church is what you want it to be. If you don't see something that you have the power to help, then you have the power to help make it happen. Whether it's social justice or spirituality, each of us is responsible for helping to make it all happen. All of us need all of us to make it. What can we do? What can we as individuals do to advance the dream? Again, I can't tell you what to do, but I'll make some suggestions. And they are suggestions that I am either doing or have done. Some were useful, some not so much. I've learned that I have to be the one responsible for my learning what I need to learn and unlearning some of the things I've been taught or that have been ingrained in me over my 62 years. It is not the recipient of my mistakes that's responsible to teach me what is wrong, what I did wrong. That just makes further victimization. I need to repent and repair for the harm I've done. And there's a process to it. What right do I have to ask forgiveness if I haven't changed my behavior? When it comes to racial and social justice, I need to learn the true history and not the false narrative that I've been taught. The history that we are taught in school is not really what happened. It's a distortion of the truth. What did we do to the indigenous people when we colonized the land? What did we do to the people we enslaved? And why do we continue to make policy that is discriminatory? I need to speak out when I see a wrong. I just saw in the news that Nick Saban, the head coach of Alabama, was retiring. Last year alone, he made $11.1 million. $11.1 million when Alabama ranks 46th in child poverty, 44th in education, 44th in health care, and 48th in pollution. To me, that just doesn't seem quite right. Trump, charged with 91 felonies, is assumed to be the Republican nominee for president and appears to have a fairly decent chance of winning. And people seem to be okay with that. I am not. Our governor has done all that he can to restrict the rights of black people and other marginalized populations, and I don't agree with him. I feel that it's my moral obligation not to remain silent and do what I can to change what is happening. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing enough? Will it make a difference? It's hard sometimes to maintain hope in the future, but I do know that if I take what I know at the moment and make the best decision I can with all the knowledge that I have at the time, more often than not, I'm going to come up on the right side of that choice than on the wrong. But to end on a positive note, I know that if I do something, then I am making positive change in the world. And in doing that, I am growing spiritually. I don't want to be the person that wakes up at the end of the revolution not knowing what happened and how we got there. I don't want to be ahead in the game because I cheated someone else out of what they deserved. I ask each of you to take the time to really look inside yourselves and do the work necessary to work towards making the dream a reality. It will be hard work, and you will make mistakes. That's a given. But you will also make progress, and that's the joy, and that's the gift. In 1957, Dr. King said, "It's not only necessary to know how to go about loving your enemies, but also to go down into the question of why we should love our enemies. I think the first reason that we should love our enemies, and I think this was at the very center of Jesus' thinking, is this, that hate for hate only intensifies the existence of hate and evil in the universe. If I hit you, and you hit me, and I hit you back, and you hit me back, and go on, you see that goes on for infinity. Somewhere, somebody must have a little sense, and that's the stronger person. The strong person is a person who can cut off the chain of hate, the chain of evil. And that is a tragedy of hate, and this is the tragedy of hate, that it doesn't cut it off. It only intensifies the existence of hate and evil in the universe. Somebody must have religion enough and morality enough to cut it off and inject within the very structure of the universe that strong and powerful element of love. It's what I try to do every day, and it's what I know all of you can do. Amen. I say, blessed be.
We gather here to learn, to be inspired, to gather strength, and to build community. Today is a Share the Plate offering in which 1/2 of non-pledged donations will go to BLUE, which stands for the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. BLUE is committed to expanding the power and capacity of Black UUs within Unitarian Universalism, providing support, information, and resources for Black Unitarian Universalists, and justice-making and liberation for Black people throughout our faith. In the sanctuary, the offering will now be given and received so that we may take care of our vital community. What's given in love, we receive with great joy, and we say thank you.
Now please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, Come and Go With Me. It's hymn number 347 in the gray hymnal.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this life appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind, seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit. Gather in peace, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then, gather in hope, compassion and strength, gather to celebrate.
Octavia Butler was a prophetic science fiction novelist. Her writing required her to examine current-day events and then carry out some of the what-ifs in order to write of the future. A student asked her what the answer was to ending the suffering in the world. Her response provides us with our closing words today. She said, "There's no single answer that will solve all of our future problems. There's no magic bullet. Instead, there are thousands of answers, at least, and you can be one of them if you choose to be. Are you willing to provide an answer?"
Now we invite you to say our chalice extinguishing as Amy extinguishes the chalice. The words to USP's traditional chalice extinguishing is in your order of service or online in the text chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Our worship is over, but our service begins. We hope this time together will help you throughout your week and that we help you remember you are not alone. Please join us next door in Gilmore for coffee or buying chocolate or signing up for the parade or asking about making special biscuits for Ted Lasso service. But we'll see you next door.